Hello everyone, and welcome back to Daily Kaylee's 13 Days of Halloween. We are on the third episode, which feels insane because it's already October 6th and it feels like October started yesterday, but it's fine. We are officially in the Halloween spirit. I'm ready for it to not be 75 degrees outside, but I'm going to make do with what we have. Today's episode is very strange. I feel like I say that about every single case that I talk about, but this one's pretty strange. Today's episode is about John Christie and 10 Rillington Place, which is in London, England. There's actually a movie literally called 10 Rillington Place that this case inspired. So if you haven't seen it, listen to this episode and go watch it. I'm sure you'll love it. I mean, as much as you can love it, I guess. Anyways, you'll see what I mean. So John Christie, he was born in Halifax, England in 1899. He had 6 siblings, and he was the most shy and reserved of his siblings. He was described as a quiet boy by his peers in school, and he didn't have many friends. He wasn't very popular or very sociable. He was a really good student, and he was actually a Boy Scout despite having no friends. I think he really just dedicated all of his time to studying. After he graduated from school, he began a job as a cinema projectionist, which, basically he worked at the local movie theater and showed movies. In 1916, he was drafted by the British Army. While in the army, he suffered from a mustard gas attack, and he was in the hospital for over a month. He says that this attack left him unable to speak loudly, so he could basically only whisper for the rest of his life, which kind of fit his personality because he was very quiet and reserved anyway. This is very personal, and I feel like maybe the whole world shouldn't know this, but he suffered from erectile dysfunction, basically. He was not interested in a sexual relationship with women, and he was made fun of a lot throughout his life because of this. I don't know how everyone knew this, but as an adult, he could only have sex with prostitutes. Like, that's the only way that it would work. Even after he married his wife, he was unable to have sex with her. It just wouldn't happen. When he first married his wife, he was in and out of prison for about 10 years. For just, honestly, petty crimes. He would steal postal orders. He would... I don't even know how to explain it. It was just, petty crimes. The worst crime that he committed during this time was assault, and it was just a bar fight. It wasn't anything serious. In 1937, he got his life back on track. Him and his wife moved to a flat at 10 Rillington Place, which is in Notting Hill, London. He got a job at the cinema again, and later he joined the War Reserve Police at the beginning of World War II, which he really only got this job because they did not check his background at all. They did not check his criminal record and just gave him this job. Now, shortly after moving in to 10 Rillington Place, John Christie killed his first victim. Her name was Ruth First, and that's very ironic, I guess, because she was his first victim, but she was a prostitute and she was only 21 years old. He invited her back to his home on August 24th, 1943, and while his wife was away visiting her family, he strangled her with a small piece of rope and then buried her body in the garden behind the house. His second victim was a woman that he met at a new job, and this was at a radio factory in London. Her name was Muriel Eady. Somehow he convinced this poor woman that he could fix her bronchitis, and he put herbs in a jar, and she believed him, and she inhaled these herbs. However, while her nose was in the jar, he inserted a tube into the jar that was hooked up to his local gas line. This gas was about 15% carbon monoxide, and she passed out like immediately, as one would. While she was passed out, he raped her, and then he murdered her by strangulation once again, and buried her body next to his first victim. In 1948, a new couple moved into the upper flat at 10 Rillington Place, so they had new neighbors. They were named Timothy and Beryl Evans. They settled in, everything was great, the neighbors were friendly, and eventually they welcomed a daughter into the world named Geraldine. Not even 2 years later, at the end of 1949, both the mother, Beryl, and her daughter, Geraldine, were missing. Obviously, her husband reported the disappearance to the police, but the police found the bodies of Beryl and Geraldine wrapped in a blanket in an outhouse, basically, on the property. Beryl's body showed signs of having assault before she died. Obviously, Evans swore that he had nothing to do with this, and he pointed the finger at John Christie, who I guess he thought was strange and the only other person around. Of course, John completely denied this. However, he gave the police a lot of detailed information about how Timothy and Beryl would argue upstairs. The police believed John, even though he was literally a murderer, and they tried Timothy Evans in court. He was found guilty, and he was sentenced to hang, and they did hang him in March of 1950. On the morning of December 14th, 1952, John strangled his wife to death in their bed. After her death, he sold all of her belongings, and anyone who asked where she was, he gave them random stories. He made up a new story every time somebody would ask where she was. The police, I guess, did not get involved with the disappearance of his wife because, to be fair, I guess he was really the only person to report it, and why would you report your missing wife when you murdered her? However, he had 3 more victims after his wife's death between January and March of 1953, and all 3 of them were prostitutes that he gassed, raped, and then strangled to death. No one discovered his crimes until after he moved out of 10 Rillington Place. After he moved out, the new tenants tried to put up a bracket for an appliance in the kitchen. They were screwing into the upper wall, and the wallpaper gave away, and they saw the entrance to a small crawl space. When the new tenants went into the crawl space, they discovered the 3 final victims of John Christie. Of course, they reported this to the authorities, and Christie was tracked down and arrested, and he was tried for murder, which the main murder that they were trying him for was his wife, Ethel. The exact same executioner that put Timothy Evans to rest at the hands of John Christie was the one who sentenced John. Well, he didn't sentence him. He carried out his sentence, I guess I should say. The hanging did not seem to bother Christie. I think that he knew what was coming for a long time. And reportedly, while he was waiting to be hanged, he complained that his nose was itching and asked the executioner to scratch it for him. And the executioner said, "It won't bother you for long." And then he was hanged on July 15th, 1953. this is just such a weird story. He almost reminds me of Ed Gein, like the way his personality and his upbringing were. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think there are similarities, or do you think that they're completely different? I mean, obviously they're completely different, but let me know what you guys think. And I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I can't wait to come back in a couple days, and I'll see you then. Bye, guys.